Welcome to the podcast series on legislative and governance issues funded by the European Union under the Support to Democratic Governance in Nigeria, the EU SDGN Phase 2 program. My name is Yembe Ama, your host, and joining me on this edition is Mrs. Ogechi Ogu. She is the former Deputy Director for Prisoners Rehabilitation and Welfare, also known as PRAWA. Now, she currently works as an independent consultant working in the areas of human rights, administration of criminal justice, peace and conflict resolution, women, and security sector governance. Our topic for discussion in this edition is promoting peace and security through women's leadership and political participation. Ma, you are welcome.
Thank you, Yembe.
We would like to know what are the key principles and objectives of the Women, Peace and Security agenda, and how does this intersect with conflict resolution?
Okay, in terms of women, peace and security, there's this key principle of inclusion, key principle of participation. There is this, it's just about justice, it's about human rights, is about especially participation of women. Now the key thing is, how do we get women involved in key issue of conflict that affects them? To take it on a layman's terms, because usually conflict, as people, it affects. The effect of conflict is on both men and women, boys and girls, but in terms of there's difference in terms of how it affects men and how it affects women. So the point now is, how do you bring women to the table in terms of dealing with issues of conflict, in terms of peace building, in terms of post conflict reconstruction of the community and the rest of them.
Mm-hmm. Can you please just mention some of the main challenges or the obstacles that affect the meaningful participation and the inclusion of women in peace and security efforts in Nigeria?
Okay, for women, there's what we call barrier. Now, first of all, you know that the security you are talking about, the peace you are talking about, make for development, progress and development, so that we understand it from this angle and now get a deeper understanding of what we mean by the barriers that women face. Now the barriers come by way of cultural. We have cultural barriers, we have religious barriers, we have economic barriers, and that leads to what we call poverty. Then we have political barriers. But the point is that the things around the cultural, the religious, the social barriers, they are the ones that build into the economic barrier. So what this means in simple terms is that when a culture, ab initio, has placed a woman in a certain position, and what we call patriarchy, so it's about women should be here. There are stereotypes, there are things women should do, things women should not do. So those limiting factors make it difficult for women to have equal opportunities with men in terms of many things that happen, especially in terms of economic empowerment, in terms of education. In the past, parents were sending their male children to school while the females are asked to stay back at home. And once there is no economic empowerment, it distills into the political scene, because the women that are not properly empowered are not able to participate, have equal opportunities like their male counterparts to participate in the political scene. And when you are not able to participate, it means that you have lost your voice to a certain extent. So you are not able to bring to the table your own challenges in terms of issues of conflict. Now, when the conflict comes proper, you find out that the experiences of women are different from men. So you see things like gender-based violence The women are those that are taken as booty. You know, you saw the experiences with the Boko Haram experience with the Chibok girls. Often is the women that are taken. And even when the men are affected, these men are husbands of women that suffer and automatically get affected in terms of livelihood, because suddenly they find themselves as heads of families, while elsewhere they were not prepared economically to take up that position. Even when their husbands come back, and are wounded, and there's this post-traumatic disorder, they are the ones that equally suffer, because they are the caregivers in the home. They suffer taking care of these persons. So generally speaking, conflict situations affect women so much, but there's not opportunity given to them to participate. And that is what happens in our local communities. In fact, in the past, when they used to go to wars, women are not even where they discuss the fact that there will be war, not to talk of participating in any form or giving their opinion or coming back to say it affects us this way or the other way. So women, all these barriers are the things that make it difficult for women to participate.
Thank you very much, Ma. So from your response, I can tell you're talking about the gender dynamics, yes, and the power structures that are at play. So in your own opinion now, do you think women are better at negotiating for peace, or you think the men do a good job in promoting peace in areas of conflict?
Both men and women can promote peace, but the point is that it has been found out that women are good mediators. Women, because of the kind of experiences women have, they can even give early warning signals. So in terms of prevention of conflict in the first instance, women can be very useful, because they know what happens within the community, like just what happened at one of the, I think it's Delta State recently. You see that is about sharing boundaries, sharing riverine or whatever. And women are those that go to the stream. The women are those that do small, farming around those areas. So they can see movements, they can give information. The only thing is that they have not been given opportunity. And if you take from our own history, especially regarding the Northeast, Northwest, and the rest of them, women are touched by the kind of violence that happens, when there is conflict. You remember it was women that were protesting the kind of bloodshed that was happening, the kidnap of the Chibok girls in Plateau, the bloodshed. And if you go to most parts of the country, they are the ones that are ready to carry placards to talk about peace, stopping the violence and the bloodshed that goes with it. So men can promote peace. Women can also promote peace. The only thing women are asking for is opportunity to come to the table and discuss these things.
Thank you very much, Ma. So with regards to the opportunity, what are the legislative measures? So for instance, if you happen to be in the House of Reps or at the state's houses of assembly, or you happen to be a senator or a minister, what kind of policies are you going to push for that you think the government can adopt to ensure that women's participation in peace and security resolutions are adequately addressed and adequately implemented?
Okay, if you take the resolution 1325, for example, you see that the National Action Plan was put in place, regarding this, has made a lot of impact in terms of having, example, the Nigeria Police Force the gender policy for the Nigerian Police Force. You have other things like gender desk. You have legislations like the Violence Against Persons Prohibition Act. So you see that these are ongoing, actions that have already been taken. Now, but the point is that in articulating the National Action Plan regarding this resolution, the National Assembly was not actually carried along. So as a matter of policy, because having the National Action Plan, we are now having issues in terms of implementation, in terms of provision of resources, because everything, every ministry and department, agency must have gender mainstreamed into what they are doing. But where there are no resources to implement, it becomes an issue. But if, as a matter of policy, the National Assembly is carried along in a process like this, and there is a component about oversight, so that as a matter of policy, the National Assembly is in their oversight work for the MDAs. They are asking them questions. Example is when they bring to the National Assembly their budgets. You are asking them, how much have you put in for this in terms of their own constituency projects also. They make it a matter of policy that maybe a certain percentage of the amount they put out for the constituency projects is targeted at gender issues about involving women in peace and security, discussions and the rest of them. Then another thing is quota. That's the major thing, the quota, having women on the table. And the table we are talking about now, at least for example, in the representative capacity at the National Assembly, what we have now is not anything to, to be proud of, because in terms of representation, women are not up to 5% at the National Assembly. So are we able to ensure that enough number of women are there? And even to the state assemblies, the same. Like 15 states in the Federation don't even have one single woman in their state assemblies. Now, beyond that, when you now go to the security architecture of the country, women are not in the right place. When discussions around security is going on, no single woman will be found there, because as long as Nigeria is concerned, and to our knowledge, there has never been a female Inspector General of Police. There has never been a female, Controller General of Corrections. And I think it's the same with almost all the institutions. Now, who is discussing these things? Who is bringing that component of the special experiences, the different experiences women go through when there is conflict? And it is only when this discussion is brought to the table that solutions can come. So in terms of the National Assembly, what they should, start thinking along the line of accepting what has been presented to them all this while for many years now, which is the Gender Equal Opportunity Bill. And that Equal Opportunities Bill has provisions that will close up this gap, make provision for women, for easy participation of women in politics, for women to be there at the National Assembly, for women to also be there at different levels in the structure of governance, as ministers, in the ministries, in the departments, in the agencies. So whether you're coming by way of 35% affirmative or whatever percentage, and to say that many other countries have already taken this route, like Rwanda, and they're doing very well, regarding that. Women should be, where they should participate and speak to these issues, because after conflict, we are no longer talking only about conflict. After conflict, there is opportunity of peace building. There's opportunity of reconstruction. That period of transitional justice, the aspect of the experiences of women will feed into what can be helpful in building back a healthy society. And a healthy society is a society where there is justice. And part of justice is having women who are, like in Nigerian case, above 50% of the population being part and parcel of what is happening within the community. Are you getting it? Within their society. And another thing is When you start building, you equally build women in terms of their economic participation, giving them equal opportunities, because when you take security issues deeply, the root causes, you can trace it back to poverty. And when a nation have their women folk not being in a position, most of the population are in position of poverty, that is in terms of women, it affects the family, and it's the family that gives products to the society. Because at the end of the day, you see that when the kids are not well raised because the women are not contributing the way they should, that element of poverty will still be in the society. And once it is there, there is every likelihood poverty works with insecurity. There's nobody that is working maybe with the NNPC today that you will see when they call out to come to the road, to the street, to protest, you see them come out. Nobody will convince them to join one group or the other in terms of maybe banditry or in terms of terrorism and the rest of them, because they are in better place. So involving women, empowering them, that is the most important thing. It will be helpful in terms of dealing with issues around security, building peace, and the rest of them. And when everybody is happy, when there is justice for A and B, you find out that there is a balance in the society. And once there is balance, there is every likelihood that there will be stability, there will be progress, and there will be development.
How would you rate the performance of the female lawmakers in addressing or advocating on issues regarding the inclusion of women in peace and conflict resolutions and their impact on security in Nigeria as a whole?
Okay, Yembe, I don't think I want to answer your question the way you asked it. I want to answer it differently. I want to say I would like to see more of female legislators. I would like them to be out there. What I have seen is about private organizations, about NGOs pushing the issue of participation of women, all these things about women empowerment and the rest of them, women involvement in peace, security, reconstruction of society after conflict. So I don't want to give them percentage because I don't even know where to place the percentage. But I think they can do more. I think they should be better involved, in activities around advocacy to achieve this very important purpose. So they should be more in the picture. And that means that we have more work to do, even as civil society organizations. No matter their percentage, I know the challenge again is how many are they? There are very few, but the few that we have should be involved more, should be engaged more. And we know that when we have problems, it's not everybody that perceives problem from the same perspective. So how do they understand this as a burning issue? A burning issue that can impact on the progress and the development of this country. So the best place to start is that the energy that we are using as civil society organizations, independent persons in the society, doing this, we should commit a percentage of that energy to first of all getting the buy-in of the female legislators, get their perspectives to this issue, and if possible, get them more in, I don't know whether I should use that, enlightened or aware of how important it is for them to be the driving force of whatever advocacy that is going on regarding this issue. We need to see more of them in the field. We need to see them convincing their people to get more involved. We need to see them doing what the men are doing in terms of lobbying. Let them lobby the men. Let them get the men, use what they have in terms of their own votes. At the floor of the Senate or the House of Representatives, there are things the men equally want them to do, for them. Let them equally ask for this. So we need them to do more. I don't want to score them.
Thank you very much. But my last question would be, your experience in security sector is vast, national and globally. What are the best practice, global best practice in other jurisdictions that you think Nigeria can adopt as a starting point to addressing the issues of gender equality and gender responsive security sector?
It's all about inclusion. It's all about participation. It's all about equal opportunities. That's what globally, everybody, every country, every nation, you know, the United Nations, if you look at most of the instruments of the United Nations, they speak to the issue of equality and non-discrimination. There is none of these instruments that you don't find equality, non-discrimination. And if you take the core, the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, it talks about equality in respect and dignity. So if you take this principle of equality and non-discrimination, respect, dignity, and the rest of them, it means that you should believe that as a matter of human rights, the nation, Nigeria, as a matter of, you know, should understand that it is the human rights of women to be involved in issues that affect them, issues happening within the society. So other countries are involving women. Other countries are bringing women to the table in discussions. Look at America, look at all these other countries. You see that women are involved. And that does not mean that our own women lack capacity to be on the table. So the best thing is treat women equally, give equal opportunities. That's just what it is for both men and women, so that the country can get, you know, better.
Do you think Nigeria has invested or investing enough in gender-based violence and other initiatives to promote women's role in peace building and security?
Okay, thank you, Yemba. I think Nigeria has done well to an extent in terms of legislation. At least we have the Violence Against Persons Prohibition Act and the speed with which most of the states adopted this same act. Then in terms of policy, Nigeria has put something on the table again. We have gender desks, you know, with the police, and I think most of the institutions are now going into having gender desks, you know, to address these issues. But beyond having these things in place in terms of the law, the question is how much of the resources needed to have these laws and the policies function do we have in place in terms of material resources, human resources. You know that there is need for capacity building. Even some persons that are on the desk may be requiring serious capacity building. How much resources is being provided? Now, when you look at the Violence Against Persons Prohibition Act, it makes provision for protection of women. But before you can successfully protect someone, the person has to be empowered. Empowered in terms of education, knowledge that the law is even in existence. We have several laws that people are not even aware of their existence, not to talk of, you know, knowing the protection that the laws provide. And as long as women are still living, you know, at that poverty level, that is a huge percentage of women, we still have problems, you know, in our hands, because economic empowerment is critical for people, you know, assessing whatever protection you are providing to them, because they require resources to move on. And we're still in a system where women, especially at the grassroots, we are not talking about women that are already up there, and the percentage of these women is quite high. So Nigeria has done, you know, well in terms of making these provisions, but they need to do more in terms of providing the adequate resources to get these things running. Like example, assuming you want to take women in, in terms of shelter today, I can't count one or two centers that is set up by the government itself. It's usually private organizations that have these things, and you need them. You need shelter for them. It's not all about IDP camp. You need places, transit homes for women, that have been challenged in one way or the other, that are survivors, where they can stay and build back before they return back to the society.
This podcast edition is funded by the European Union under the Support to Democratic Governance in Nigeria EU SDGN 2 program. Thank you for listening. Subscribe and stay up to date with upcoming episodes. Follow PLAC on all our social media platforms at PLAC NG. Thank you.